When I think of thru hiking, I picture days spent backpacking through forests, campsites nestled into beautiful landscapes, and minimal contact with civilization. Professional thru hiker and outdoor writer Liz Thomas's vision of thru hiking is quite different. Liz has embraced hiking in cities, stitching together multi-day routes that venture through different neighborhoods and terrain. For Liz, urban hiking offers a unique opportunity to take advantage of the city's streets and parks right outside her door.
The first time I urban hiked, it sort of was like this existential question of like, what is hiking? What does it mean to be a hiker? What does it mean to be a thru hiker? And I think my takeaway of it is that a hike is something that's physically and mentally challenging that involves some level of walking. So that's what makes an urban hike different than walking your dog the same route that you do every single day. It's pushing yourself to do something very new.
Liz Thomas is one of the most accomplished hikers in the U.S. She's completed the Triple Crown, which means she's hiked the Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, and the Continental Divide Trail. She even set a self-supported, fastest known time on the Appalachian Trail in 2011. Liz has a ton of experience in remote parts of the wilderness, but for the past 10 years, she's been creating and hiking long-distance routes in 15 cities around the U.S. I'm Shelby Stanger, and this is Wild Ideas Worth Living, an REI Co-op Studios production presented by Capital One and the REI Co-op MasterCard. Liz Thomas, welcome to Wild Ideas Worth Living. We're excited to chat with you today.
Thanks so much for having me on, Shelby.
So Liz, how did you first get into hiking and what about it lured you in?
I didn't grow up in a really outdoorsy family, but I had a first grade teacher who was really interested in getting kids outdoors. And I just loved being in this little nature reserve by my house where she took us. And I begged my parents, who were not hikers or outdoorsy people, to all be like, hey, can we go hiking? And they're like, oh, okay, it's free, I guess. And I kind of kept that love alive. My parents were not like the type of people to take camping or be able to really afford expensive outdoor equipment. But by the time I got to college, I was like, I know this is what I want to do.
Amazing. So where did you go to college and how did you get deeper into hiking then?
I went to college at Claremont McKenna College, which is very close to where I live now. And I joined the outdoor club. So I learned a lot of my outdoor skills from professors who were like in their 60s being like, hey, there's a student who wants to go outdoors and learn stuff. Yeah.
Through the Outdoors Club, Liz fell in love with the sense of adventure she felt on the trail. She was good at going with the flow and looking at the bright side. After graduating from college, Liz decided to take on some multi-month thru hikes, starting with the Appalachian Trail or the AT in 2008. The next year, she hiked the Pacific Crest Trail, and the year after that, she completed the Continental Divide Trail. Okay, so do you remember the first trail, the Appalachian Trail, pretty well?
Oh, yeah.
Is there any highlights or like extreme situations that you remember that stand out?
Yeah, so when I was in the Smoky Mountain National Park, I hammocked on the AT. Actually, both times I've hiked the AT, I've hammocked. And
tell me what that means real quick.
It's like a hammock in your backyard. You string yourself up between two trees and sleep in a hammock with a tarp over the top to keep the rain out. Well, okay, theoretically, the tarp keeps the rain out. My most memorable day on the AT is when I woke up in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. being like, why am I so cold? Take out my headlamp and realize my hammock has turned into this swinging bathtub. And all this water is soaking in with me in the hammock. And I just remember thinking, if I have one more night like this, I'm quitting. And then when I woke up in the morning, it stopped raining and the sky was this really vibrant blue and the flowers on the trees had all popped out and the grass was so green. And being in the Smokies, I just felt this sort of like power, this energy off the trail itself. Like everyone who had walked the AT before me and everyone who would walk it after me was going on the same path. And the people who had lived there before, it was just this sort of magical connection to the land. And that's what kept me going.
I love that. And so how soon after did you decide to do the next trail?
So when I finished the AT, I felt really, really gross. My knees hurt. A month afterwards, I was still having trouble going up the stairs to my apartment. And I ended up getting tested for Lyme disease, and I had Lyme disease. So I kind of had to heal from that, and luckily everything worked out with the meds. But it was like probably a few months before I'm like, all right, how do I make this PCT thing happen?
Okay, and then how was the PCT?
PCT was awesome and hard in its own sorts of way. Like having hiked so much in Southern California, I was like, I got this. And then, the Sierra, when PCT hikers go through it, there's a lot more snow than when I had spent time in the Sierra, which is a little bit more walkable. But it was great. I met so many cool people. Yeah, it's a great trail.
Amazing. So during this time, did you have other jobs?
Yeah, I was in grad school for the first part, and the way that I was able to fund hiking the PCT was that I got a grant to do research on the PCT.
Genius.
It was pretty genius.
What sort of research were you doing?
I was looking at the role of through hikers on gateway communities along the trail because I realized how important the towns are to the hiker experience and potentially how hikers could benefit a lot of rural communities. And also how that relationship can go sour if hikers are not behaving themselves.
It's so fascinating that you studied something and then got a grant for it and actually made it your life's work and you figured out a way to get paid to be an adventurer.
Thank you. I think, when really knowing that it was something that I loved and wanted to make happen, I kind of felt like I was throwing against the wall and being like, is anyone going to fund this? And ended up working out.
By the time Liz was 25, she'd completed the Triple Crown. In between hikes, she was also working on a master's degree in environmental science. She figured that after she finished these through hikes, she'd have to grow up and get an office job. But the trails kept calling her back. She decided to return to the Appalachian Trail and go after a fastest known time, or FKT.
And I was like, wait, what if I were just to hike one more trail? Like, I've learned so much on the CDT. I bet if I went to hike the AT, I could do it as fast as I want. And, maybe it would be an FKT, I don't know, but at least I could build it into the sort of hike that I dream of.
Then you did it. In 2011, you broke the record for the fastest known time of the Appalachian Trail at the time. Is that correct?
Yeah, fastest woman self-supported.
Amazing. And what was that like? Like, how did that make you feel?
I feel like I'd spent so much of my life being kind of mid. Like, people were like, like, she's okay, whatever. And, like, it was the first time when I'm like, oh, maybe I'm actually, like, good at something.
What did you just say? Did you say I've spent so much of my life feeling mid? Is that the word you used? I don't even think I've heard that word.
I live near a college campus, so it's kind of like a Gen Z word, but yeah.
Can you say that again? I felt so much of my life feeling mid. I love that.
Just like, like not feeling like a super athlete. Like when I was in elementary school, I was the slowest kid to run the mile in my class. And as an outdoor athlete, I feel like, like people don't really think of it as like being a serious athlete because you're not training in the same sorts of ways. You don't have a team. So to be able to go out there and be like, oh, okay, like this is an FKT, this is what this means, was sort of like a huge mental shift for me.
Yeah, I bet. I also love this story because my niece tells me she's slow and she's the slowest in her elementary, middle school. And I was like, I don't think you're going to be slow forever, Like, that is really heartwarming. And I appreciate you sharing that you were the slowest kid in elementary school. So how did you prepare differently for your FKT versus some of your other hikes? Like, what was your strategy?
Yeah, I mean, my strategy was getting up a lot earlier and hiking a lot later. And I think just sort of like being prepared to be on the move more. So, in some ways, as far as staying warm, there's a little bit less of a margin because there's no hanging out in camp, like needing a big down puffy jacket. I hammocked on that trail. But I kind of went into it knowing I'm going to have to rely on my hammock a lot more because I'm just going to hike until I physically can't every day and find a tree, string it up and fall asleep.
What if there wasn't a tree?
Then I keep hiking until there's a tree.
So can you tell me like what a typical day was like? I know this was a long time ago, but like take me from waking up to actually hitting your head down in the hammock.
Yeah, I would wake up in the dark and just get hiking, oftentimes solo. It was a lot of times solo. I think because I got ahead of the pack, the AT often is seen as a really social trail, and I didn't see that many people at all. But in some ways, like it was so exhilarating to have the AT sort of to myself and to be going at the speed and seeing all of these things that I'd seen my first through hike. I was so excited to go around the next turn because I had been there before, and I was like, wow, I'm back here. I never thought I'd be back here. It's so beautiful. I'm so excited to be here. It was like, I was so tired. I was like happy delirious.
After 80 days, 13 hours, and 11 minutes, Liz broke the Appalachian Trail self-supported FKT. That means she did the entire trail on her own. No van followed her along for a comfy spot to sleep, and no friends cooked her dinner along the way. Once she finished the FKT, Liz settled down a bit, at least by her standards. She worked for various trail organizations and outdoor nonprofits, but she still hiked whenever she could. Then in 2013, Liz decided to take on a completely different type of thru hiking. Let's play a game. If you could turn your everyday spending into limitless possibilities, what gear or apparel would you grab? What ticket would you book? Which wild idea would you make a reality? All right, I'll go first. If I could go anywhere and do anything like right now, I'd pack my bag for a surfing and hiking trip to Chile. The good news is that the REI Co-op MasterCard is the perfect card to support wild ideas like mine. It has you covered with rewards and benefits that encourage your love of the outdoors. This card is exclusively for REI Co-op members, taking your membership even further with card rewards on every single purchase, whether you're shopping at REI or anywhere else. And you can redeem your card rewards as you earn them, so you can finally grab those new hiking boots you've been eyeing, stock up on snacks, and keep more cash in your pocket. Head over to rei.com/MasterCard-podcast to see if you're pre-approved today. That's rei.com/MasterCard-podcast. Terms apply. Hey, Wild Ideas adventurers! If you're looking to elevate your trail running game, you need to check out Teva's Avon Trail family at REI. Whether you prefer the airiness of a sandal or the support of a shoe, Avon Trail has you covered. The Avon Trail sandal combines the freedom of a sandal with the comfort and technical benefits of a trail running shoe. With its secure W strapping system made from 100% recycled materials, tiered lugs for confidence on technical terrain, and cushioned HyperComf midsole technology, you'll feel like you're running on air. For those who prefer a more traditional trail running shoe, the Avon Trail shoe offers a laceless design for easy on and off, along with the same great features as the sandal. It's perfect for tackling off-road adventures with confidence. Johnny and I have been taking our Tevas on adventures for decades, and I personally can't wait to try the Avon Trail sandals on my local hikes and trail runs in San Diego this summer. They're the perfect blend of comfort, support, and breathability. Head into your local REI or to rei.com to check out Teva's Avon Trail shoes today. Hey, Wild Ideas listeners, I've got some exciting news to share. Wild Ideas is heading to Denver, Colorado with the REI crew from May 29th through June 1st for the Outside Festival. It's going to be an incredible weekend filled with good music, delicious food, outdoor activities, and inspiring conversations with some of the biggest names in the outdoor space. I'll be interviewing guests live on the Ideas stage and our very own Wild Ideas stage in REI's Camp Co-op. If you're at the festival, come by and say hi. And here's a special request. On Saturday, May 31st, I'll be interviewing professional climber Alex Honnold, and I want to ask him questions from our Wild Ideas listeners. If you have any questions for Alex, email them to podcast@rei.com, and yours might be featured during the interview. That's podcast@rei.com. Don't miss out on this amazing event. Grab your tickets today. We'll include a link in the show notes, and I'll see you in Denver. Liz Thomas is an incredibly accomplished hiker and outdoor writer. In her early years as an adventurer, Liz completed the Triple Crown, and in 2011, she set a fastest known time on the Appalachian Trail. 2 years after her FKT, Liz set out on her very first urban hike. She liked the idea of exploring dense urban sprawl, commercial corridors, park trails, and residential neighborhoods. I want to shift gears a little bit because you're known for urban hiking. What does that look like actually? Like, where have you done some great urban hikes?
I've urban hiked in, I believe, 15 cities. My first one was Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle. I lived in Denver for a while, so I did quite a few in Denver, Tucson, Grand Rapids, New York City.
So what inspired you to start urban hiking?
I got a cold email on my website from this group of urban hikers in LA who were like, hey, we do urban day hiking. We have a group that's really big activists around this. Would you like to come do an urban thru hike connecting a lot of these day hiking routes? So based on this total stranger that emailed me, I was living in Denver at the time. I went out to LA, stayed at these total strangers' houses, and just kind of like trusted the universe, being like, sure, I'll check this out. And it was awesome.
So what'd you guys do? Where'd you start? Where'd you go? Where'd you sleep? Where'd you eat?
So this route is called the Inman 300. It was invented by Bob Inman, who's a big enthusiast of urban hiking in LA, and also is really into these public stairways that are in the hills of LA. And the idea is to connect all of these 300 public stairways in one route that is about the same length and the same elevation gain as the John Muir Trail, the Numupoyo.
How amazing. So what did this whole hike look like? Take me through the whole thing.
So it looked like a lot of going up really, really steep stairways. LA, very notoriously, there are canyons where there's no cell reception. I had a really bad phone at the time, so I printed everything as paper maps and was navigating. It feels a lot like trying to navigate slot canyons in Utah, because you're counting how many canyons you have, trying to keep track of where the streets are. The public stairways are often hidden behind people's trash cans or bushes. So you're kind of peeking behind people's houses, trying to see whether it'll go or not. It's kind of like a wild adventure.
And then where are you eating and where are you sleeping on this one?
Yeah. I was able to sleep at the houses of people who are part of the urban hiking community in LA, who very kindly put me up. And then eating, the foods tend to be at the lower thoroughfares. So if you're up in the hills doing a bunch of stairways, it could be hours between when you see the next restaurant. I also carried a lot of food with me. I carried almost like a thru hiking amount of food with me, which was that was a rookie move. That was my first urban thru hike. There's food everywhere, and I didn't need to be bringing 5 days worth of backpacking food with me.
What about that hike in New York? What was that one like?
Yeah, so in New York City, that one was one of my most organized ones. I kind of everyone was like, when are you going to do New York? And I'm I'm a New Yorkophobe. It's a really big city. I'm afraid of New Yorkers. Every time I've gone to New York, it's been terrifying. I think as an urban hiker, I kind of got into it because, I'd done all of these wilderness treks, but cities still terrified me. And New York was the number one place that terrified me in terms of all of the people, all the mess. So for the New York City one, I hiked 225 miles through all 5 boroughs. And that was done in partnership with the Trust for Public Land, specifically because the more urban hikes that I did, the more I learned how important green space is within cities. And the Trust for Public Land has been working on this project in all 5 boroughs to build green spaces, parks within communities.
So where do you sleep?
That one, most of my urban hikes require a lot of planning on where do I sleep because, like I'm hiking solo. I'm don't know a lot of the neighborhoods and I'm not gonna just go sleep behind a trash can. So I'll figure out where hostels are. If I have friends in a city, I will plan my trip around where they live. Sometimes I'll use Airbnbs as well.
Okay, so you're not like setting up a tent in the middle of Central Park.
No, I have done that on not in the middle of Central Park. I have done it on some urban hikes, but it's in cities that I know that it's pretty much okay.
I'm guessing there's a certain appeal to urban hiking because you get to sleep in a real bed and you get to use a real toilet.
I could see that being an allure for a lot of people. For me, because I feel really comfortable in wilderness where I'm digging my own cat holes and sleeping on the ground, I think the allure is really sort of challenging myself in a different ecosystem, in an urban ecosystem. And I think also the allure is really like getting to understand cities more. I think when you're on foot, you can see how cities are all connected. So a lot of times, especially in these days, there's sort of like the rich areas and the poor areas and like the safe areas and the not safe areas. And when you're on foot, you realize they're all just kind of this continuum of a city. They're all connected. And it really makes me feel as if communities are connected, even though we might think of people who live on that side of town as being so different than us.
So, how do you consider safety, especially when you're alone in the city?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I try to keep in mind is like, for many people, the neighborhoods that are considered unsafe, this is where they live, and just sort of like being really present and mindful of what's around me. And I usually try not to hike at night solo. If I think I'm going to be hiking at night, I'll try to find some other people who will hike with me. But I think, like a lot of times safety is overemphasized, just like walking in the woods. A lot of times, if you're walking with purpose, it's fine.
Tell me more about what you learned about urban hiking versus like wilderness hiking, what you liked about it, what was different.
Yeah, I think the thing that surprised me the most about urban hiking is the similarities with through hiking in the wilderness and the woods. Just sort of what it's like to push your body all day, what it's like to have to navigate and keep your mind sharp and just be open to sort of opportunities that come up along the trail.
While the sounds and smells of a city are completely different from being out in the woods, a lot of things we all love about hiking are still present. You get to push yourself physically, awaken your sense of adventure, and use the rhythmic movement as a time for reflection. There are some additional pros of hiking in a city that give it a leg up on the wilderness. Obviously, you have your creature comforts, warm bed, running water, real toilets, even air conditioning in some cases, but you also carry a lot less stuff on your back.
I think the best way to think about an urban thru hike is kind of like an in-to-in trip, where every night I'll be sleeping in a bed, I'll have access to a shower, I'll have access to food. And so my pack is pretty minimal. It's what I would use for day hiking each day. And, I'll bring an extra pair of clothes. I'll be prepared to do laundry there. So it's pretty minimal.
So what gear do you take with you that you don't take with you on a wilderness hike? Or what gear do you usually leave behind that you would take on a wilderness hike?
I sometimes will bring more in the toiletries department on an urban hike. I don't backpack with deodorant, but I will bring deodorant on an urban hike. For example, I've urban hiked sometimes when I'm like supposed to be working or need to be checking in on my laptop. I'll bring like a really lightweight laptop as well. Yeah, that's one of the things that an urban hike can afford is like, more chargers, more electronics, more smelling good.
I like that. And you'll actually work on a trail, which is really cool. You'll do remote working.
Yeah. And, each day is kind of like its own micro adventure because when I set out from whether my friend's house or the Airbnb, I don't know what I'm going to see. I don't know if I'm going to get lost. I don't know what the day is going to look like. It's truly an adventure.
So like what exactly are you bringing as far as backpack and clothes?
Yeah, I bring a change of clothes. Backpacking clothes, you can be a little bit more stylish when you're on an urban hike than you might be in the backcountry. Extra socks. I'll bring toiletries so I can take a shower every night.
And then what do you have for food and water?
I usually bring, I've got like 1 or 2 liters capacity as far as my water bottles go. And then for food, I usually just have like a few energy bars because I know I'm going to run into restaurants.
I love that. Okay. And you have a map with you or your phone.
Right. I'll bring an extra phone battery. Sometimes I have a map and, sunglasses, a hat, sunscreen, super important.
How do you prepare for like a multi-day urban hike? Like, let's say you're going to go for a week or so.
Yeah. I think one of the most important things is having really good shoes. And the shoes that you need for urban hiking are different than what you would use for backpacking. A cushioned sole really helps. Being on pavement for that long is like any road runner can tell you is it's like it hurts compared to being on trail. So I learned that the hard way on my first urban hike. And since then I have these sort of like ultra marathon road running, like designed for like bad water sort of
Do you have like Hokas?
They're the ultra paradigms. So like
Oh, you have
they're
the
just,
ultras.
like,
Okay.
yeah, they're like super,
Awesome.
super cushioned. But yeah,
Super
Hokas are
cushy.
also really popular among urban hikers.
What are there other things that you need to do to prepare if you're going for multi-day? So we got shoes.
I liked when I'm doing my planning, not only do I plan where I'm going to stay each night, but I also like to plan things like where can I eat? Where are the bathrooms? Where might there be drinking fountains? Where might there be like a picnic table that I can sit at and take a break for a while? I think those are all really important parts of urban hiking.
Where have you had your most magical meal?
Oh, so when I was hiking in Seattle, I was with this really rad woman, Vivian, who was like an ultra runner who would only run it in the city to train. She would run from bakery to bakery. So she like had all the hookups being like, this is the best croissant in this neighborhood. Oh, when you get to that neighborhood, you need to go here. So that was awesome.
So I'm making my partner do he and I are gonna do like a coffee through hike, and we're gonna like stop at every single coffee shop from like here all the way up to the tip of the coast and eat
Yeah.
as many pastries. I think there should be more like coffee hikes. I love this.
I considered doing, so I've done urban through hikes where I go from brewery to brewery. And I
I would
considered
just be
doing
too drunk. That's why I can't do that.
there was a big learning curve with that. I had a friend who was our designated hiker, and I considered after that doing a coffee hike, and then I was like, I would get too caffeinated.
Well, I was like coffee, tea, pastry, like whatever. You stop and you get like a snack at every little place.
I would love to join you for that.
The beauty of urban hiking is that you can plan a hike around whatever interests you. Art galleries? Yep. Plant nurseries? You bet. You want to do a hike around the best cookies in town? Abso-freaking-lutely. Personally, I'd plan to stop at surf shops and coffee shops. All you have to do is put your stops in on your favorite maps app, and boom, your route is ready. Liz told me that she likes to do a little extra research and use satellite view. You never know where you might find a cool bike trail or an unpaved road. I'm curious how urban hiking changed your relationship with cities, especially New York.
Yeah, I think, being on foot in a city, it kind of it brought all of those big skyscrapers and the busyness down to 3 miles per hour that I walk. It brought it down to a human level, and it made me think of the city not as a scary place, but as a place where I can build real human connections with people that I meet along the way. And just be open to sort of like, it slows everything down. I think, every time I'd been to New York, it'd been like in a taxi or on a train, all these people. And I realized, New York actually isn't that busy or overwhelming on foot. It's like even these places that are these like lots of people or whatever, it's like they're walking the same speed I am. They're really busy, but I'm also trying to get to my next location. It made a lot of the things that were really intimidating feel very human.
I just think your take on hiking is really interesting. Like, you're doing these long hikes in big cities. Obviously, it's not just about getting out in nature for you. What makes you so excited about urban hiking?
I think one of the things about urban hiking is that I really want to get people who are really into being outdoors in the wilderness, like people who have no problem driving 7 hours to get to a peak, to be like, wait, why are the places that I live right next to not walkable, not safe, not only for me to go out on an adventure, but also for people who don't have cars, can't drive cars, people who get around in wheelchairs. There's a whole community of people that relies on infrastructure, and the way that we as outdoor adventurers think about like adventure and being active is the thing you do over there, instead of being like adventure can be right here and being active can be right here. I think another aspect too about urban hiking is that there's a lot of people who don't go out and adventure. They probably aren't listeners to this podcast, but who don't feel comfortable in the outdoors. And I just want to offer urban hiking as a way to have a lot of those sorts of healing aspects of movement, of being in nature, without some of the constraints that are involved with getting out into wilderness areas.
To follow Liz and learn more about her riding and adventures, you can find her on Instagram at Liz Thomas Hiking. That's LizThomas Hiking. Liz also started a website called Treeline Review in 2018, where she reviews gear and offers expert advice for getting outside. I highly recommend checking it out. It's a great resource. We'll link to it in our show notes. If you want to learn more about the LA stairs that Liz mentioned, there's an episode of Hello Nature, one of REI's other podcasts, all about them. We'll link to that in our show notes too. Wild Ideas Worth Living is part of the REI Podcast Network. It's hosted by me, Shelby Stanger, produced by Annie Fassler, Sylvia Thomas, and Sam Pierce-Nitzberg of Puddle Creative. Our senior producers are Jenny Barber and Hannah Boyd. Our executive producers are Paolo Motola and Joe Crosby. As always, we love it when you follow the show, take time to rate it, and write a review wherever you listen. And remember, some of the best adventures happen when you follow your wildest ideas.